The notes from this lesson relate to measures of variability. So what that means is you're looking at a set of data and how spread out those results are. So the key definitions that you'll need to know for this lesson is we're looking at the range, which you will have covered in the past, the interquartile range, standard deviation, and variance. So they're the 4 things that you're going to be asked to calculate in the questions that you're about to complete. So if we look at the first one, what I want to recap first of all is we spoke about last lesson about measures of centre. So we're looking at the mean and the median. So I'd like you to pause the video for a moment and calculate the mean and the median for this first group of data here and the second group of data here. So hopefully you've done the calculations and you will have found that for the first group, the mean is 50 and the median is 50 as well. And interestingly enough, even though the data is quite different in the 2 groups, the mean for our second group is 50 and the median is also 50. So what that means is the centre for both of these groups is at 50, but the mean and the median don't give us any idea of how spread out your results are. So what we're going to have a look at is what are calculations that we can use to calculate how spread out our results are. So the first one that we're going to look at is the range. So the range is just the largest value minus the smallest value. So if we look at our first group of results here that we have, we've got individual ones. So to calculate it, we've got our range is just our biggest value or our largest value minus the smallest one. So our largest value when we're looking at our results, because they're not in numerical order, the biggest value is 54 and our smallest value is 46. So that gives us a range of 8. If we have group data, like our second example here, it's similar in how we do the calculation, but it's a little bit trickier. We need to think about, well, our first group of results are between 70 and 80. Our second group is between 170 and 180. Our second group of results is between 180 and 190, etc., etc. So if we're talking about range being the largest value minus the smallest value, we need to work out the smallest value first of all. So the smallest value that could possibly be in our group is 170. And the largest value it could possibly be is 210, which then gives us a range of 40. So there's 2 different ways to calculate the range depending on the group of results that you have. The problem with calculating range is though, if you have an extremely large value or an extremely small value and the rest are quite close together, the range is going to look quite large. So it's affected by extreme values. So to help overcome that, we look at the next type of measure of spread, which is interquartile range. So with interquartile range, we're working at how spread out the results are for the middle 50% of results that we have. So it's excluding the bottom 25% of results and the top 25% of results. The interquartile range formula is also known as Q3 take away Q1, and we'll go through how we calculate that now. So I've got a group of data here. It's lined up in numerical order, which is nice. That means I don't have to rewrite them into numerical order, because order is important when we're working with measures of spread. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to calculate the median. So if I count up the results, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 results. So our median is going to be halfway between the 5th and the 6th result, which you probably remember from last lesson. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our median is going to sit right in here. So if you remember from last lesson, that would mean our median is going to be 8.5. So once we've calculated that, what we now need to do is calculate what is called Q1, or our lower quartile. And what that is we've got our lower group of results here below the median, and we've got 5 results. So our Q1 value is the middle of that lower half of results. So because we've got 5 results, our Q1 is going to be this middle result here, because then I've got 2 below it and 2 above it. So Q1 is equal to 7 in this example here. And we do the same for the upper quartile, or Q3, as well. So I've got 5 results again. So the middle result is going to be the third one. So in our case, our middle result is going to be 10, which is known as our Q3. So we can set the values up from smallest to biggest, work out our median first of all, and then find the middle of the lower half, which is known as Q1, and the middle of our upper half of values, which is known as Q3. Once we've done that, we can then use our formula to work out the interquartile range, because remember the interquartile range is equal to Q3 take away Q1. So in our example, our interquartile range is going to be 10 take away 7, which we can see from our examples, which gives us just an answer of 3. So the other way that you can calculate the interquartile range values, so Q1 and Q3, is using your graphics calculator. So I'm just going to open the calculator, and what you do first of all is, I'll just go back so you can see what I've done, is if you want to put in a group of data into a list, you'll go Control I, which is a new page, and you'll select lists, add lists and spreadsheets. Okay, and it comes up like this. What you need to do first of all is to go up to the top here, which is where you label the columns, and I'd just like you to label it IQR because that's the example that we're doing at the moment. And then once you've done that, I'm just going to go back to show you one I've already done. You need to put in each of the results that we had from our screen before, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, etc., etc. Okay, 9, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So once you've put those results in, we're going to ask our graphics calculator to work out Q1 and Q3. And the way that we do that is you go Control I for a new page, and we're going to do it in the calculator page. So just select one calculator, and then to get the calculator to work it out for us, we go Menu, and we select number 6, which is statistics. So you can either move your trackpad to select it, or you can just hit the button number 6 and it will show it for you as well. I'm just going to, okay. Then we go into number 1, which is stat calculations, and when we select, I'm just going to move it back so you can see it as well. So we go Menu, 6, 1 for calculations, stat calcs, and 1 for one variable statistics, so you select number 1 again. So remember it's Menu 6, 1, 1, and once we've done that, we've got one list of results, so select 1, and you then need to select what you've called it. So in our case, we called it IQR. So once you hit enter, it will tell you lots of things. So if we go up to the top of the values, it tells us the mean and the median, which is what we covered last lesson. And then it covers Q1 and Q3, which is what we're looking at the moment. So just like we calculated it manually, our Q3 is equal to 10 and our Q1 is equal to 7. So that gives us the interquartile range of 3, which is what we worked out manually as well. Pardon me. Okay, so you can manually calculate it like what's on the screen here, or you can use your graphics calculator to work it out as well. So here's just a summary of what we've covered. So you load the data, so label it first of all, then put the results in. Then to calculate Q1 and Q3, you do that in a calculator page. So remember that's that Control I number 1. And then you go Menu 611 to select it. You select one list, okay, and then you select what you've called it. So in our case, we called it IQR, which you can see from here. And then from this, you can then see the results that I've copied for you as well so that you can work them out. So then we have what's also known as the minimum and the maximum, so you can work out the range, and Q3 and Q1 as well. So that's quite a handy thing to do if you're using a whole stack of results. So the other way that we might work out the interquartile range is if you're given an ogive, which we worked on last lesson, that our interquartile range is just the value at 75% minus the value at 25%. So if you're given an ogive and asked to work out the interquartile range, what you need to do is find out where does it hit at 75%. So these are in groups of 10. So 75 would be about here. So you would grab your ruler and you'd mark off where it hits the graph. And then what you do is you drop it down to see what value it takes. So in this case here, it appears to hit at 190. So that's our 75th percentile, and we do the same for our bottom group as well. So 10, 20, 25% is going to be in here. So you drop it across to where it hits the graph, and then you drop that line down to read off what the value is. So in our case here, Q3, Q3 is going to be equal to 190 by reading it off the graph. I'll just move that across so we can see it. And our bottom result here, which is our Q1, is equal to if we're reading it off the graph, is equal to 180. So then, oops, I'll just move it across so that you've got it, you can see it. So then our interquartile range is just going to be 190 take away 180, which means our interquartile range, or IQR, if we abbreviate, is going to be equal to 10. Okay, so that's, if you're given an OGIF and asked to work it out, what you need to do, girls, is draw on the graph the two values that it intersects. Now, your answers might be slightly different when you're doing the questions, but if they're very close into quartile range, then you're doing the right thing, because it just depends on how you're reading it off the graph. But try and be as precise as possible. So the other things that we talk about when we're doing calculating measures of spread, we have two other things. One's known as the standard deviation, and the other one is known as the variance. Now, for both of these, we use our graphics calculator to solve them. Okay, so there is a mathematical formula that we go through, but for the purposes of this year and for next year in further maths, you just need to understand that you have to put those results into your graphics calculator, and then your calculator will solve it for you. So if we go back to our calculator and our results, you can see here, if I just move it up a little bit, okay, this SX here is what is called the standard deviation, okay, for samples of data, which is what we work with. So this SX, which is 2.17, is what the standard deviation is. So when it asks you to calculate the standard deviation, it's just reading it off your calculator. So it should say 2.17, not 2.13. So I'll just change that. So to calculate the standard deviation, it's just reading it straight off your graphics calculator. The other thing that they will ask for in year 11 is to calculate a thing called the variance, and the variance is just the standard deviation squared. So for us, it's looking at taking that measure, that 2.17 that we calculated on our graphics calculator, and then just squaring it to get the answer. So just make sure that you make a note of that in your notes that you can take into your SAC, because it's likely to be one question on the SAC as well to calculate the variance. So just remember, you calculate the standard deviation on your graphics calculator, and then you just have to square it to work it out, to work out the variance. So just to recap that as well. So if we go down to a new part, so if I've got my standard deviation is 2.17, then to square it is just this button here, and then if I go enter, it will tell me what it is as well. So in this case here, the answer for our variance is going to be 4.7, because I've changed the figure slightly as well. So hopefully that all makes sense for you. So make sure you change that to be 4.7. If I can get in, I'll change it as well. There we go. Okay, so we know how to work out the standard deviation, which is the measure of spread, and the variance as well, which is just the square of the standard deviation. Okay, so if one more example before you do the questions, if you put all these results into your graphics calculator and work it out, so do a new list and maybe call it standard deviation, or just call it standard, because remember, when you're putting in results into your calculator, you can't have a space in the list. And then I'll ask you to work it out. So if you put it in to your list, I'm just going to go into lists and spreadsheets and just call it standard, maybe, or stand as I've abbreviated it here, and then put in all the results. Now you'll see my results have come up because I've entered them before, so it's a bit quicker. So you put in all those results and then go to a calculator page. So you can do one of two things. If you want to go to a page that you've already got calculations on, if you go Control and up here, you can see all the pages that you have open. So I'm just going to select this one here, which is a calculator page, or remember you can go Control I for a new page as well. So to calculate the standard deviation, it's the same as before. We just go Menu, Stat Calculations, which is number 6. Sorry, Statistics, which is number 6. Then we do Stat Calculations, and then we do one variable statistics. So we go OK, and then we select Stand, okay, which is just the abbreviation of what I've done, or you can select Standard is what I've called it as well. So going Enter from here, then we can see that the standard deviation is 1.414, and then we can calculate from that the variance as well. So if our standard deviation is 1.414, then if we square that for the variance, you should get an answer of 1.994. So hopefully that was helpful, and now you can complete all the questions on measures of spread. And remember, if you've got any questions, is to ask in class next time.